Welcome back to another episode of Cappuccino Chat. This time we're talking about the CrowdStrike incident, and well, it got me thinking. Okay, this time we're talking about the CrowdStrike incident that happened in July, and it kind of got me thinking about things. So, first, if you weren't aware of the CrowdStrike issue, or maybe you didn't understand some of the outages that you may have experienced because of it, it was a enterprise grade security product that's used by a lot of enterprise businesses like airlines, the federal government, those kinds of things. And I know some of the big parts that were affected were the airlines. Matter of fact, Delta was the most affected by it. So, what this was caused by was a bad update in the program caused the computers to experience a blue screen of death and not fully boot up. So, they would not turn on, users couldn't use them. This happened to millions of devices, 8.5 million to be exact, around the world, were affected because of this bad update. Now, even if you weren't directly affected because you didn't have the CrowdStrike program installed, which most small to medium-sized businesses do not, again, it is an enterprise-grade product, you may have been inadvertently affected by it, i.e. flying on the airlines or trying to make a reservation. Or in my instance, we came in that morning and we heard some beeping out in our warehouse. Well, come to find out that beeping was in the electrical room for our building, and it ended up being the fire control panel. And the reason it was beeping is because that panel couldn't communicate to the monitoring service because the monitoring service systems were down due to the CrowdStrike issue. So we were inadvertently affected to it. So two things happened that kind of got me thinking. One, you and your employees don't have to be the one that caused these types of issues, right? So our instance, it was a vendor or a third party that caused this thing. The other one is how do businesses respond when something like this happens? A bad update, could be a bad Microsoft patch. Could be your QuickBooks update fails and causes it to become unstable and unusable. Those types of things. So what happened? So now my first point is more as far as your employees and you don't need to do anything wrong to cause these issues, is just to make everybody aware again, multiple layers of security, multiple layers of protection are what's really truly needed in a cybersecurity framework. But I want to spend more time on number two, and that's how do businesses respond? Now, we've talked about disaster recovery plans before, and that's more about flood, fire, earthquake, those types of things. In a disaster, what happens? And even those disasters could be just the fact that the server doesn't turn on. That's typically when we're talking about disaster recovery plans, is the server and or the entire building is gone and unusable. This is more of an incident response plan that needs to be done. And most people haven't ever heard of this and or ever considered creating one. And an incident doesn't need to be a disaster, i.e. in this case, nothing, catastrophic caused it. The building was still standing. There was no fire, no flood, no earthquake. The server would turn on. It's just because of the bad update, you were stuck. So this is more of a cyber incident response, right, that we need to talk about. So what would you do? What would your business do in a case like this? And it doesn't even have to be this case. Like I mentioned, QuickBooks. Let's say QuickBooks gets a bad update and is no longer stable. What is the plan? What is the thought process that goes in? Who is affected? What do you do? Type of thing in an incident response plan. The biggest thing with these incident response plans is you can't ever think of every variable. Even in a disaster recovery plan, you can't think of every variable that may happen, but you have a general plan so that employees know how to react, what to do. So if your employees come in before you do in the morning and something like this had happened and all the computers wouldn't boot, they all had a blue screen of death, would your employees know what to do in your plan? Who do they contact first, second, third, those types of things? That's really what we want to think about. That's really what you need to kind of put down, communicate to your employees, maybe put it in a binder, at your office. So if something ever happens, it is there. And again, this isn't just about your computer systems. This could be your phones, your credit card terminals, your POS stations, the building alarm, the fire alarm, like it happened with us. What needs to happen when this kind of incident takes place? How do we communicate? Do we gather in a certain spot? So again, if it was some type of danger issue, what do they do? What's the response during this type of incident, so that you can ensure that your employees, your business, and your clients remain safe and protected as much as possible. So if you don't have one written down, discussed, and even practiced with your employees, I recommend your next executive meeting, you kind of bring this up, this incident response plan, which people may or may not have heard about, and just start thinking it through, so that in certain instances, if there is a incident, what is the process in which your employees and you are going to follow? Is it, hey, if the computers won't boot, won't do this, you just call Matt over at Southwest Networks, you call them, open a ticket, and they will respond appropriately for you to the issue. And that's great, but again, that just handles your computer systems, not other things. We may not be doing your phones, your alarms, your security cameras, your fire control stuff, other items at your building. If there is a incident, what are the points of action that need to be handled, and by whom do those things need to be done? So if, like always, if you have any questions about this, you'd like some guidance, like to talk this through a little bit, please give me a call, 760-770-5200.